Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to, as usual, this time of the week, go over my thoughts on the questions from the two main opposition leaders to Rishi Sunak at PMQs. But unlike as per usual, today was not a tale of opposition MPs calling out Tory failures and the Prime Minister trying to change the subject, but with President Zelensky's attendance, questions about matters which mostly unite people across the political spectrum. Even Stephen Flynn of the SNP decided to pick on Sunak's predecessor rather than Sunak himself. Give him a day off, you know. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So it was all very strange. A PMQ is unlike one I've seen for some time. Not entirely unique. You know, PMQs is usually an opportunity to pull the government onto shaky ground and then beat the Prime Minister up. But today, Keir Starmer used his questions, all of them really, to promote Labour's position rather than expose that of the Tories. You know, as it all began, I thought you could tell Sunak's in a bit of a hole here. Not only did he need President Zelensky to pay him a visit to cheer him up today, but he planted the first question for a Tory backbencher to ask the Prime Minister, oh, can you tackle all this peddling of doom and gloom in the state of our nation? And I thought, well, but he needn't have worried unduly, at least not today. With the welcome presence of an actual government leader in Parliament, it would have seemed very off for Starmer to haul Sunak over the coals for his many cretinous actions over the past week, when the public would expect support for the one thing that our main politicians agree on, or at least pretend to agree on. You know, we have to we have to remember, most of the country aren't really party political, or even especially partisan on quite a lot of issues, really. They just want things to work. What most people just want is for politicians to work together to make things better. The issue of Ukraine and Russia may well be the only thing which has mainstream political agreement in this country, at least on the surface. And as Starmer needs to win over voters who want a government to bring people together, not poke holes where none need to exist, not to carry on the divisive, toxic policies of the Tories, his questions seemed more supportive than piercing. That being said, he did ask two questions which poked at the Tory support for Putin's pals in the UK. But Sunak dodged them, and quite a lot of people watching won't have really seen it for what it was. So deprived of the opportunity to batter Sunak this week, and my goodness, there was plenty to do so, Starmer instead used the opportunity, as I say, present Labour's position on various aspects of support for Ukraine and action against Putin's circle, as well as asking about government support for the regions hit by the earthquake this week. And unlike if it had been Boris Johnson opposite, Starmer would probably have known that Sunak, wouldn't attempt to try and score any crass political points. You do occasionally get a PMQs like this. Has to be said, usually it's at a time of huge national or international tragedy where trying to score political points would just go down very poorly. Where politicians have to come together, reflect the common sympathy and resolve of the various groups within wider society. Indeed, Starmer's first question was, as I say, about the terrible death toll resulting from the earthquake in Syria and Turkey, before recognising Zelensky's attendance in the area and committing his support for Ukraine. If Starmer wasn't going to be able to expose more Tory shenanigans this week, he could at least use the opportunity to show people that actually there's really no difference between the way the UK would approach Ukraine's plight based on the party of government. Because whenever you see polls of who voters think would be best on certain policy areas, Conservatives or Labour, it's increasingly common now to find Labour leading the Conservatives. I've seen several polls where it's across the board, including on the crucial area of economic policy. But you do sometimes see the polls showing the Tories with a bit of a lead on Ukraine. So it does Starmer no harm to point out, actually, Labour's position is at least as strong, if not stronger, in some areas. And nowhere was this more obvious than in his last question, where he explained that Labour helped to found NATO and that their commitment to it was unshakable. But in his remaining questions, so he expressed not just general support, but what specific support he wanted the UK government to provide to Ukraine. But he had a particular focus, I thought, on dealing with Russia, particularly Putin, his inner circle, after the war. Not just helping Ukraine rebuild, but preventing Putin from being able to pull this stunt again anywhere. He talked about the problems of appeasement. And this is what we've been doing, of course. We must remember Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014. Since then, we've gone to well, all of us, but we went to the World Cup in Russia. Welcomed them into the international community. They were actively occupying Ukraine at the time. Now, whether this is personal for Starmer as a former human rights lawyer with some experience of working on cases like this at The Hague, or whether there's a political benefit in pushing issues that the government won't address, I can't say. The Tories talk a good show on support for Ukraine, but they tend to offer only lip service on action against Putin's allies. They only ever talk about that when someone presses them on it. In fact, when Starmer did press Sunak on a commitment to make sure he does what he can to get Putin into The Hague, I think that was the implication, Sunak just dodged it altogether. He said he was committed to a Ukraine victory. Yeah, he wasn't asking about that, was he? He was asking about afterwards. What are you going to do to punish any war criminals? And when I can predict what the comment's going to be. Don't bother. When Starmer asked if Sunak agrees that Russia should pay for the damage caused through the wealth laying dormant in Russian assets, Sunak replied that the UK had taken the lead in sanctioning Russia. This is, of course, patently untrue. While other European countries were, and America as well, were quick to apply sanctions to Putin's friends and allies, and even then some people thought it was not necessarily quick enough, but they were very quick to apply sanctions and roll those sanctions out. The UK was faffing about saying it would take time to do it properly. There were Russian oligarchs who live in the UK, who have a lot of assets in the UK, that the EU applied sanctions to before we did. The government, who coincidentally had taken millions of pounds in donations from these people, the government gave Russian oligarchs with close links to Putin, with considerable assets in the UK, plenty of time to get them out of our jurisdiction. They basically gave them lots of warning. Look, we're gonna string this along for a few weeks, say that we're having to do it all properly. You've got like a month to get it sorted. And even after they provided the very sporting head start, I don't think they really applied proper sanctions, did they? They tried to have made an example of Roman Abramovich because he's famous, so they forced the sale of Chelsea Football Club, and a bit just to give the impression that the government were really cracking down. But did they really? But the amount of Putin-linked Russian money based in the UK, largely in London, is quite staggering, and the Tories have quite purposefully barely touched any of it. We were slower than other Western nations to apply sanctions. We applied them less robustly. Sunak said that the funds that had been put aside would be given for Ukrainian reconstruction. That'll be the tip of the iceberg, the amount of money, by the way. But I noticed that he didn't say the money would be given to Ukraine for the purpose of reconstruction. He said that it would be spent on Ukrainian reconstruction. You know what that means, don't you? It'll be spent on Tory donors to provide some service for that reconstruction, most of which will disappear in profit. And it makes no difference whether the people who get those contracts are the most appropriate to deliver it or even the most cost effective. That will at least be the intention. But while Russia occupies large parts of Ukraine, we can't take anything for granted. But even with the best case scenario, I think you're probably talking the major reconstruction will be taking place when Labour are in power. So bad luck, Tory stooges, eh? But even when Starmer spent all 6 questions on asking about a position that the clear majority of the country and political parties officially agrees with, Sunak still had to lie and evade in at least 2 of them. But there we are. Can't be PMQs without Tory lies, can it? Even on an occasion such as this. Stephen Flynn, the SNP, didn't need to engage in the same game because unlike Starmer, he's not making a pitch to be the head of a government to bring the nation together. Still, he didn't put Sunak on the spot either. As I say, it was very nice. To what sounded like quite a lot of laughter from MPs. It might have been both sides of the house, I'm not sure, because I watched it on the telly. He reminded people that Liz Truss said she did not regret her time in office, and he asked Sunak if he regrets it. Sunak merely said that he was grateful for the contribution from all his predecessors. I'll bet he is. As a result of Truss's contribution, Tory MPs are probably too scared to let anyone depose him now. And her insane mini-budget gave him the excuse to impose austerity again. Bear in mind, This was something he wanted to do. Within weeks of being made Chancellor, I was seeing reports that he was ordering departments to work out how they could cut their expenditure. That's austerity. That was, of course, before COVID hit and then his plans were put on hold. So all of a sudden he comes back, Liz Truss has blown a hole in the economy. Ah, brilliant. Austerity. And now I've got a good excuse for it. Well, not a good excuse, but an excuse anyway that people will buy. Flynn then said that if Truss won't apologise for what happened when she was Prime Minister, will Sunak do so? To which he just basically said, look, mistakes were made and I said so at the time. So for once, Sunak basically got off scot-free, if you'll pardon the expression. Not that there was anything to be done about it. You know, not that it really matters either, if we're honest. It's not like making Sunak squirm in PMQs isn't like shooting fish in a barrel anyway. Let him have a week off. Maybe he'll even get a little boost in the polls with the Zelensky visit. I imagine normal service will be resumed next week. Maybe we'll find out more of the details of some PPE contracts dodginess as alleged on the part of the new Tory party chair, as hinted at by the Good Law Project. That would be a good one. You get rid of one party chair because of sleaze. You'd think you'd get someone else in who's clean. Well, maybe he's not. Maybe he is. We'll see. But we're told not. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.